Exposing Harper Derangement Syndrome, I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.Media. Look, I get that there are people that think Stephen Harper should be replaced. There's people that think every politician should be replaced. And then there are those that go that next step further. They dislike a politician so much they start losing their mental faculties, their ability to tell reality from fiction, or in this case, reality from satire. I found a Liberal and a New Democrat candidate both posting and spreading a satirical story about Stephen Harper as if it was the truth. And they weren't even able to tell because they despised the man so much, apparently, that they couldn't tell that an over-the-top headline that derided the Prime Minister, but also did so in a way that was ridiculous, they couldn't tell that that was fake. I'm going to read to you the story from the Lapine, which means the rabbit, and you tell me, is there something in this that should have tipped them off? Maybe starting with the headline. Exhausted forest firefighters refuse to sing "Oh Canada" for Harper. The story comes with a picture of the Prime Minister standing next to British Columbia Premier Christy Clark, his hands outstretched in front of a lineup of forest firefighters. It says Prime Minister Stephen Harper is getting slammed on social media for having a group of frontline firefighters pulled out of the Smoky Hills near this bustling BC city so they could pose with him for a patriotic pre-election picture. But things didn't go quite as planned for Harper's advanced team of organizers. The selected firefighters were so tired and annoyed that they just silently watched Harper as he waved his arms around like a conductor and tried to get them to sing along with him in a rousing chorus of "Oh Canada." None of the group sang or even hummed along, and none of them accepted "Canada's Better with Harper" t-shirts that the PM's bodyguards were handing out. They then went on to talk to a guy who said his name was Ted McKinley, who they claimed spoke to local radio station AM 1150. Now, this is a real radio station. I'm on it on a weekly basis, speaking with their morning show host, Phil Johnson. This McKinley says, "That's complete BS. Harper just wanted a picture as quickly as he could get one. He still smelled like garlic from whatever he had for lunch," said the 37-year-old father of two. The story goes on. Immediately following receiving the silent treatment from the firefighters, Harper overcompensated for the snub by waving wildly for the cameras and singing the Maple Leaf Forever as he boarded a helicopter with Premier Clark to return to Kelowna for a scheduled beachside fundraiser event. Does that sound like Stephen Harper? Does that sound like any politician? Look, I'm no fan of Justin Trudeau, but if somebody sent me that story and switched out every reference for Stephen Harper with Justin Trudeau, I would laugh and say, okay, that is not a real story. I wouldn't turn around and say, oh, have you seen this? I wouldn't do that about Kathleen Wynne or Thomas Mulcair or anybody else, because it is obviously fake. Which elected leader, and look, we can disagree with their policies, we can say they're wrong on the issues, but what elected leader is going to pull forest firefighters out just to say, all right, let's sing "Oh Canada" with me for the cameras, and then when they refuse, start prancing around singing the Maple Leaf Forever? It's not true. The candidates in question, and let me bring up their Facebook pages, Patricia Norman of Innisfail, Sylvan Lake, and then Karina Trail of Durham, she's the Liberal. They both turned around and started saying, oh, well, but he shouldn't be talking to the forest firefighters at all. He shouldn't be talking to the firefighters. This just takes away resources. Let me remind you that when Hurricane Katrina hit, President Bush decided that he would fly over and survey the damage, but he wouldn't land because he didn't want to take away from rescue efforts. He didn't want to distract the people on the ground from doing what they should be doing, and he didn't want to take away resources for his protection that should have been going elsewhere. That was in 2005. He's still being slammed for it to this day. Like it or not, politicians in this day and age are expected to show up at natural disasters like this. It's why the Prime Minister toured forest fire centers or areas hit by the forest fires with both Premier Clark in British Columbia and Premier Wall in Saskatchewan. Those are the two areas being hardest hit. He went. He saw what was going on. He offered help from the federal government. It's what's expected of politicians in this day and age. But I guess they're damned if you do and damned if you don't. At least if you're a conservative, at least if you are Stephen Harper. President Bush was probably right during Hurricane Katrina not to show up. That was a huge natural disaster, and landing in and around New Orleans at the time would have taken away from the rescue efforts. When Prime Minister Harper showed up in Kelowna, when he showed up in Saskatchewan, he was not taking away from rescue efforts. He was surveying what was going on. He waited until a suitable time. But to some people, they're just so obsessed with how evil this man is that they don't see anything wrong with spreading falsehoods, or they can't tell that it's a falsehood because they have a derangement syndrome. You don't have to like Stephen Harper. You don't have to vote for Stephen Harper, but at least be able to tell truth from fiction, truth from satire. Give your head a shake if you believe headlines like this without questioning them.